Welcome to Talking Early Years, a showcase training podcast with Ellen Roberts
and Gemma Carr.
Hello and welcome to today's Talking Early Years podcast. On this episode, we're going to be discussing the role of the father and early years. We have a special guest on today, James Sproat. Hi, James.
Hello.
Welcome to our podcast. Tell us a bit about yourself and your children.
So, my name's James Sproat. I have been director of sales for Showcase for 10 years. So from the start of the business, I've worked within apprenticeship sales for about 20 odd years with 5 different companies. I kind of got experience of apprenticeships in all sectors, but the favourite one I like to deal with is early years, which is obviously good for working within Showcase. I am the father of 2 beautiful girls. Olive, who is 5 and is in year R at school, and Willow, who was 3 a week ago. That's where I'm at.
Did you go full birthday party?
No, we went to Centre Parks for the weekend. So yeah, we had some family come and visit us for the day, and we just spent lots of time swimming. So I basically watched Willow going up and down a flume for like about an hour and a half. Couldn't get her away. She's literally just absolutely loving it. But fortunately, the baby pool was very warm, so I just lay there while she went up and down the stairs, having a whale of a time. But Great. Yeah, it was a little limiting with the bad weather. I think we went swimming 5 times in 2.5 days, so 2 a day on average.
Love it. And hi,
Hello.
So, James, you're joining us for our podcast today. So we're talking about the role of the father and especially in early years. So the role not only at home, but how we can interact with fathers a bit differently in setting as well, and making sure that they are as included as mums and others. So tell us, in your experience, what did your paternity leave look like to you?
So I think I had 2 weeks off, literally instantly after Olive was born, and obviously after with Willow as well. I mean, for me, it was kind of just two weeks supporting Lou, with the new baby, cooking, cleaning, really doing anything that I could physically do just to support her. Obviously, there's plenty of things that the dad can't do. But yeah, just trying to make everything else as easy as possible for her.
Is 2 weeks is that standard for paternity? Is 2 weeks, is that what everybody gets? Is it dependent on company? what is paternity kind of thing? What is standard?
So I think I haven't done a massive amount of research on it, but I think its standard is 2 weeks. I mean, I would imagine that's some kind of government guidelines. I found 2 weeks kind of not really enough, especially with the first one, the shock of becoming a dad, if you know what I mean. And also more thinking about how it affects the mum. I mean, it's a really magical time, but I feel it's a little short. And when you're back at work, it could be quite overwhelming, not for me being back at work, but for the mother who could feel kind of potentially quite isolated, where she's had that support there all the time, and then it's gone down from all to nothing.
Big shock to the system.
And obviously you were with Showcase at the time, so this is no shade on Showcase at all, right?
No, absolutely not. I mean,
it's just as a personal kind of experience on it all, really. So
absolutely.
Do you feel like you would have benefited, or your wife, I'm sure your wife would have, but do you feel like you would have benefited from a longer period of time as paternity leave?
Yeah, I would imagine so. I think it affects the mum more because of what she's taken on afterwards. I mean, if the government changed things and it was a little bit longer, I'm sure it's not going to do a particular amount of harm, and it just helps people, as I said, especially with the first one, that shock from being 2 adults and then you've got this new arrival to look after.
Absolutely.
Was there this, because so I have made the lifestyle choice not to have children.
Yeah.
So for me, people look at me at my age and they kind of, again, newlywed as well, they kind of
Yeah.
expect me to start having children and kind of going through all these questions, or have already had it. But I will never experience paternity leave. I also being a woman, but I
Yeah.
will never experience this. So I've kind of got a lot of questions kind of generally around paternity leave. And again, you
Sure.
see an awful lot about different countries and how different countries have got different amounts of time and things like that. But for you, was paternity leave not on a timescale level, but kind of what was it needed from you, shall we say? Was it different between the two children?
Yeah, I think obviously the first time round there was more preparation beforehand. So for example, obviously as you know, I like to cook a lot. I thought I'd get mega organized and I think I made food for about 2 weeks and like
Wow.
batch cooked it and put it into the
Yeah.
freezer. So it
Yeah.
was nice not really having to do that. Obviously second time around it was easier because we knew what to expect a bit more.
Hmm.
So, I mean, maybe they could look at, I mean, it shouldn't really make that much difference, but they could look at potentially having with your first one, it being slightly longer than the other ones. Maybe 2 weeks is enough,
Hmm.
second, third time around. But
Mm.
for the first time, those 2 weeks just absolutely flew,
Mm.
and you
Mm.
you didn't feel massively prepared when you came out of it. Also, for me, when Olive was born was during COVID. So
Okay.
obviously the implications of that as well.
Mm.
So
Cool.
obviously meaning that potentially Lou would have felt a lot more isolated
Mm.
when I went back to work after having Olive after 2 weeks.
Hmm.
But obviously, when with Willow, she could go out to see her mum's groups and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So yeah, it's a tricky one, that one really.
Yeah. How did you find taking paternity leave straight away as well? Because I know there's an option that you can take paternity leave at different times, but how did you find taking it straight away?
For me, I felt that you'd either take it just beforehand
Mm.
and kind of plan it in, or you would take it afterwards. But I think Olive was 2 weeks late.
Hmm.
So we knew it was coming, and I think also it was a Monday as well. So I was, in regards to work, I was very prepared that this was coming and that I
Mm.
could kind of park stuff.
Yeah, I've just had a look. So you can either take 1 or 2 weeks leave, and if you choose to take 2 weeks, you can take them together or separately. And
Okay.
it says your leave can't start before the birth, and it must end within 52 weeks of the birth or due date if the baby is early.
So you can take it within a year from when the baby's born.
Mm. Hmm.
Interesting. I didn't
And that's
realize.
government, that is, Ellen, is it?
Yeah, that's the government guidelines on paternity because another issue that we know of as well it is pay for it. Of course, it's statutory, so
Yeah.
many fathers do choose to only take 1 week of the leave rather than the two.
Yeah.
That must be quite a difficult choice to make as well, really.
Yeah. I mean, it was obviously taking a hit, but at the same time, I mean, at the same time, there was no way I was going to take less than 2 weeks.
Mm.
I think myself and Lou needed that to just kind of
Yeah.
establish ourselves as new parents and how things are going to work for the very changeable future. I think
Mhm.
not knowing, because I thought it was just automatically 2 weeks. I mean, maybe with Willow, I would have. Although saying that, I still wouldn't have taken 1 week. I mean,
Mm.
maybe with a third, I'd take 1 week, but because obviously I know how much input I've got to put into the process, really. But I suppose
Mm.
also you've got to take into account if I did have a third, which I definitely not. Um, there you've got to get like getting the school, getting the other children to school,
Yeah.
getting them to nursery while
Hmm.
there's a new
Hmm.
baby at home. So you've got
Hmm.
all those
Mhm.
factors to kind of take into account.
Yeah, and I suppose it depends on the support network around mums, new mums as well.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have, in my experience, have sort of said, "Oh, they've had so many visitors in the first couple of weeks it's kind of more useful for the dad to then be home after like a month, or whatever it
Yeah.
might be, when that kind of wanes off as it so often does after having a baby. So there's a lot of factors involved.
Yeah, I didn't think of it, but I didn't really think of it like that. But there is that kind of very unnormal period where you've got all these visitors, people coming around to see you, and then the kind of how it's actually going to be sets in. So there maybe would be a benefit in kind of delaying paternity leave. I mean, for us, we have like Lou's mum in Salisbury, but we don't have a large network otherwise. So it was always tricky, and we'd have people visit us from afar, but we don't really have that kind of support network that others potentially do. So lots of family in the area constantly popping around can hold the baby and look after the baby for an hour or so while you just go and do something. So it was a tricky time, but amazing one.
Yeah, I can imagine. So just looking as well on shared parental leave. So that's something that came into effect a few years ago with government. So you are eligible as a father and mother and father to share the leave. So you can share up to 50 weeks of leave and up to 37 weeks of pay between the two of you. So
Yeah.
obviously, if the mother takes less leave, the father can take more. And it's usually statutory pay as well. So
Yeah.
it depends on the company. Some different organisations have different conditions for it, but in terms of the government statutory guidelines, that is where the shared parental leave is currently at. So again, what are your views on the shared parental leave?
So I think that's certainly new from when we had Oliver originally. I'm not sure whether it's since Willow was born or before. I mean, for me, I'm not sure. I know that Lou would have wanted to take as much time as possible, and financially for us, it made sense to do it this way round. But if the mum is maybe, I've got a friend whose mum, so the mum is she's like a forensic scientist and earns
Wow.
a very, very good wage, whereas the chap didn't. So they kind of managed that, and he was in the end turned out into a stay-at-home dad because financially it made sense. But yeah, I mean, in our kind of situation, it made sense just to do it the kind of standard way. And as I said, I don't think we would. I don't know what the choice was at the time when Oliver was born 5 years ago, but certainly with Willow, we probably would have had a few more options.
So, in terms of those first few weeks, then you mentioned that you were very much a support for Lou, especially rather than so much probably Olive or Willow when they were born. So, how does that feel as a dad, being that kind of non-primary caregiver for the baby, but kind of needing to be a bit of a different type of partner as well? It must absolutely turn everything upside down for you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's quite a shock.
Yeah.
I mean, the role of the father is obviously really there to support the mother in gearing her up to have everything that she needs to provide for the baby, for holding the baby when she needs that rest. I don't know where I heard it from, but that's kind of this is quite a blokey thing to say. There's an
I'm
anecdote
ready.
about like a Formula One crew.
Mm-hmm.
So the dad is like the pit lane crew.
Yeah.
Whereas the mum is the car itself, looking after the driver being the child. And all you are there is to provide everything to keep that car going, to keep the driver safe. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
I know it's very blokey, but I
No,
just
no,
quite
no,
like
what
it.
our
it makes
gender role
sense.
conversation was going to be then, James, but I'll allow it.
It's
So
yeah,
I mean, I felt I spent a lot of time just making sure that Lou's comfortable, making sure she had necessary equipment for breastfeeding and stuff like that. We also, where necessary, I had to go and make up bottles for like formula bottles for Olive in particular, which is where I learned the beauties of a prep machine.
I was waiting for that.
From having so from having to boil the water, cool it down, and the whole hassle of that, and then realizing, oh, there's this little gadget that you can just put it in, press the button, and there it is. It's great. I mean, I probably did it for a month before realizing that this thing actually existed. And that was an absolute game changer.
Do you feel, talking about sort of bottle feeding, breastfeeding, did at any point, and I say this politely, but did you ever kind of feel a bit like a spare part to that, or did you feel very much involved with that process and being able to support with that?
I mean, obviously I can't physically do it, so however that was gonna kind of work out, there was no way that I was going to be able to physically first-hand help. I mean, as I said, all I can do is support, make comfortable, go and get. I mean, as I said, we had a few issues originally with Olive where she's kind of I don't know what it's actually the phrase is called, but she was having both. And sometimes when there was struggles with kind of natural feeding, I obviously had to go down and make bottles up. But yeah, I felt useful. But at the same time, you know that without the mum, without the primary giver, then I'd be pretty useless. And all I'm doing is supporting her in supporting the child.
Yeah, I suppose and again, going back to kind of like in terms of your role in the relationship as well, you kind of must feel a bit helpless in a way that you can't take that away from mum as well, and I can't always help. So if she's exhausted or sore and having problems, or which is incredibly common, I think way more common than people talk about and actually realize. The vast majority of mothers have those issues, but there's nothing you can kind of do about it other than give that massive emotional support. Must have been a core role really for the dad.
You do feel powerless in the sense that you can't do that, you can't replace that. But at the same time, if you're doing as much as you physically can to enable it from happening, you can't be too down on yourself because it's just not physically possible.
Yeah, absolutely. What was what has been your biggest challenge so far as a father? What do you think?
How long a list do you want?
Well, we spoke quite a bit on a previous podcast about gender roles and how obviously especially with newborn children, but in a lot of the early years, really 0 to 5, so the age range of your children, it's all sort of about mum. But what about dad? What are the challenges?
I mean, for me, I mean, it's not specifically to being a dad, but just juggling everything really. Realizing that your time is very, very precious, and you don't really have a great deal of time for yourself. I've been banging on for the last couple of years, having all these kind of DIY plans to try and improve my house. Nothing ever gets done. Okay. It's a case of, I mean, the first 9 months or so, depending on how much the mum takes as kind of maternity leave, it becomes most challenging when the mum's back at work, when you're juggling the full-time job, both of your full-time jobs, with parenting, pickups, drop-offs, trying to get some housework done, trying to put healthy food on the table. As I said, obviously I like cooking from scratch. We've now got to the point where we always used to go, right, okay, so we'd feed the children their food, but as they've got older, I don't really want to cook twice. And obviously, as you know, I do like my spicy food. So I've now had to make a massive compromise in life And generally I cook one thing. It might be a curry that would normally be hot, but I just don't put any of the hotness in it, and then just add all the spices later. So I don't end up having to cook and then wash up twice. So yeah, it's really the time managing of time, but that isn't, as I said, is not unique to the dad. It's himself.
Well, it sounds like you're a very, very much a hands-on dad as well, very,
Yeah.
very present with your children's lives and obviously with Lou as well.
Yeah.
How do you have experience sort of like amongst your sort of friend group or kind of other dads that you've met that kind of looks a little bit different?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there are, within my peers, there are some that do more, but maybe one that does more. But I would say generally most do less. So sometimes my friends' partners might speak to me and say, I don't know how you do all that as much. My partner's out at 7 in the morning and then not back until 6. So it just doesn't. But again, that's kind of the flexibility in jobs. It might be that she works less, so and he earns a lot more money. So we try to make things as equal as possible. But I certainly know I certainly get involved a lot more than a lot of the dads I know.
I think it's important for people to realise it's different horses for different courses as well.
Absolutely.
Nobody knows their situation and their relationship more than those two people and what's going to work for them. And similar to Gem, I'm not in a position of having children, and it's quite a privileged position sometimes outside looking in, but a lot of people have that unsolicited kind of advice for people, whereas actually all they need is your support rather than that kind of judgment of what's right for one person, what's not for another.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
how on earth do you manage? What have you done apart from the cooking to make this work? It sounds like it's been a labour of love for a few years. That's successful.
So we manage having working full time, having 2 children by, well, I'd like to say communicating well most of the time. Obviously, there are some glitches in that. Both myself and Lou do relatively flexible work, so we don't necessarily have a chat about this because I'm not, as you probably well know, I'm not a person to remember something that someone's just told me. I need to have it written down.
Yeah.
So it tends to be by communicating by WhatsApp, and it'll be, right, this is what I am doing this week. This is what Lou is doing this week. And what is the kind of what can work? Okay, who's doing drop off? Who's doing pick up? Stuff like that. Also, when we've got things that are booked. So, for example, take our team meetings. They're booked up until December. As soon as I get the dates, they go through to Lou, knowing that there is no way that I'm going to be able to do anything on those particular days. If anything last minute comes up, I suppose it's just a case of negotiation. On the whole, we kind of share all responsibilities, and we make it work. Obviously, as I said, there are times where it's like, who is going to do this, and someone has to compromise. But because we have kind of flexible roles within our jobs, as you know, I'll quite often do a long day of maybe 12 hours, knowing that the next day I might only do 6. And I think this is probably one of the main parts of my job. And as I said, with Lou, it's the saying that we're really grateful for, because it enables us to kind of meet the children's commitments, spend quality time with them. Because obviously there's that tendency that other than the weekend, I'm seeing them for an hour in the morning, hour in the evening. And that's about it. So I do get to spend quality time with them in the week, but also still get a good job done at work, and not having, really importantly, not having to spend lots of money on additional childcare.
Yeah, That's a big conversation, isn't it, at the moment, and kind of how that is looking for a lot of families, and coming down from government, and how it looks like for nurseries, even for we see it on that side as well, don't we? So yeah, absolutely.
It must really test every aspect of your life. But we speak obviously quite a bit in our safeguarding shorts about healthy relationships and healthy behaviours within relationships, and it must really sharpen those, especially communication and having that strength of relationship. And I suppose even again, outside looking in, even if mum and dad aren't together, an important aspect of parentage is that communication and
of course,
and trying to keep that relationship, whatever it looks like, separated or otherwise, amiable, and with the child at the center of it, which I know unfortunately a lot of couples, especially when they are separated, don't maintain or sometimes forget. But having those behaviors and putting that child at the center of those decisions is so important.
of course.
James, I've got a question for you.
Go on.
It wasn't I haven't pre-notified you of this information.
Oh, great. Okay, that's a good start. What are you going to spring upon me then?
Yeah. So I wrote my dissertation on fathers, and how does the father's childhood affect how he plays with his children.
Oh, okay.
So answer that question for me. Do you think your childhood, your upbringing, has impacted maybe your behavior techniques with your children, how much quality time you spend with your children? What has your past had an impact on your children's present?
Well, I think it probably has, but not necessarily noticeably, if you know what I mean. I grew up in having two very busy parents running restaurants. So I mean, I would say first 8 years of my life, my mum was a stay-at-home mum. My dad worked for a large hotel chain. So it was probably very normal for the time. So different to how it is now. Dad would leave at 7 in the morning and wouldn't see him. He'd get back 7 or 8 at night. Again, really long hours, especially within hospitality. And so everything was with mum, and obviously occasionally, I mean, he was quite high up in a hotel chain, and we used to spend weekends with him, but he'd often we'd go to like France or somewhere in England and stay in the hotels within the chain. So I'd see him, but the amount of contact I had with him was, I mean, 10% of the time that I spend with my children now. So it's very, very traditional. I mean, how does that impact on, I suppose the way it might have impacted is obviously I wanted to be more involved. I get on really well with my dad, and I had a very good childhood. But at the same time, I think how things have changed, it has made me more keen on spending as much time as I can with them while they're young, because they're not going to like me any more than they do now in the future.
Oh, I'm sure they are proper girls. I bet they absolutely hang off your every word.
Let's hope so.
I think that's really important, though, to acknowledge, isn't it? There is that, our generation upbringing was very different to the upbringing that I would be providing if I were to have children, would be very different. And the expectations of those again, we've spoken before, those gender roles, the expectation of that, there would be a different, not higher, but a different expectation for the father now, I think, than there used to be, for whatever reason that is, sort of thing as well. So yeah, that's just quite interesting for me to hear.
Good.
That.
I'm glad I was partly able to answer
it. No, that's very interesting. So we mentioned very briefly about sort of nurseries, and both of your two girls went to nursery. And in terms of, obviously, government is trying to change sort of access to her kind of care, really. So whether it's a nursery, preschool, childminder, that kind of thing, with paid hours. What do you feel a nursery did for you and your two children? How did it help you specifically as the dad, really? What were the kind of benefits, or did you feel there were benefits of having the nursery?
I mean, obviously, there were plenty of benefits. I mean, a kind of bit of background is we had both of them at two separate nurseries. The nursery they spent most of their time at, and that they started at from scratch. That was more. It was called a nursery because it had babies, but it was more of a preschool in regards to hours.
Mm.
So it was generally term time only unless you wanted to pay for holiday club. So that kind of worked quite nicely for us. They also went to, so they had 3 days there a week, and then they had 2 days in more of an outdoorsy, more of a chainy commercial nursery. And with those they had longer days and stuff like that, so we had to kind of juggle how are we going to use this 30-hour funding as smartly as possible. And obviously at the time where Olive and Willow were both going, Willow wasn't gaining any, they hadn't changed the rules by then, so Olive was getting 15 hours or whatever, and Willow was getting none, and then obviously that moved on to 30 hours and then none. Obviously, things are a lot better now, but at the point, I don't know, we were spending nearly £2,000 between us on fees. So we're trying to having to work out. Don't really want them. We don't really want a 2-year-old at nursery from 8 until 6. But that's what you were paying for with the big nursery, and that is what they were taking out of your kind of funding pot. So for me, it was always better sending them to the more kind of term time, and they were just literally there 9 till 3, and sometimes we'd pay for the additional hour or additional 2 or whatever. But it meant that we could spend more time with them. And as I said before, it's about being organized between the two of us, and what sometimes start at 7 in the morning, get a couple of hours done, then you can finish at 3. So it's in regards to what they did, I mean, one of the nurseries was very kind of outdoorsy. Let's go out in all weathers and get really muddy, which has kind of ingrained a love of the outdoors for both of them. And that was kind of very technology driven and stuff like that, and kind of very modern, I'd say. Whereas the term time only one was kind of all paper based. I didn't get 100 photos a day from the other the term time nursery. So it was more kind of verbal handovers, and this is what she's been doing today, and showing us stuff. So it's a bit more personalized, really. Whereas the other stuff was, the handovers were a lot shorter, but we were getting everything through some of the apps and stuff like that.
Did that change your experience with the nursery? Did you prefer one of those over the other?
Yeah, eventually we got to a stage where we certainly with Willow, actually with both of them, we changed Olive's nursery to the term time only one, maybe a couple of months before she was meant to finish. So maybe like May of that year rather than the July when she would have normally finished. And then at that point we put Willow full time in the term time only nursery. So yeah, it was just a bit more. The staff, I mean, I can't say they were better because I didn't see them at practicing, but they just seemed more engaged, more loving to the children, rather than, it was a lot more impersonal with the bigger one.
Yeah. And again, that's quite interesting to hear, because again, I've worked in nurseries who do paper-based in inverted commas, and then you've got the nurseries that are predominantly moving over to everything IT, and it's kind of interesting to hear it from a parent's view. Why do you prefer like you say, yes, it's lovely to see the pictures throughout the day, but actually, is it detaching from a different element of it? So it's quite interesting to kind of hear your thought on that.
Yeah, I mean, I made the fatal error of setting my family app to my work email. Yes. There's me thinking, oh, I might get 2 emails a day. Oh, no,
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 no.
no. You're looking at 20, 25. Some of them have 118 pictures of children that could be your child. So you're like, oh, I'll have a little look over there. And then do you know what I mean? It takes you away from the
Yeah.
what you're meant to be doing. But
Yeah.
I always preferred the smaller, the more homely one, the paper-based one, the term time only one, because primarily it was just about the greeting from the children, from the staff themselves, and the children, my children were always so keen. I never had any problems with like I've seen so many parents where their child's clinging onto them, they're not going to go into nursery, they're
The
screaming and
handover.
shouting. Whereas mine are very kind of independent. Maybe that's because they don't like me that much. But they'll always go straight in and they'll give daddy a kiss and they'll go straight in happy as Larry. But they were always, you could see they were more excited to go into the smaller one.
That's very
interesting, isn't
interesting
it?
to hear.
And when we think about behaviours for practitioners, I think maybe that's something important to kind of take away as well, is that yes, technology, there is a use for technology in early years. We had a previous podcast about technology in early years of all its forms, from the tablet to, using books with buttons that make sounds, as you go. There's a whole spectrum of technology, but having that personability is such an important aspect, remembering that as an adult that you need as well, not just between you and the child, but also parent to parent.
Yeah.
Having worked and lived through those changes. So again, when I started my career in early years, everything was paper. We had a big A4 folder per child. There was a lot of paper. We've then gone into the IT, the apps, the family, all the different apps that are available to be used, and dependence on those apps. And actually a lot of settings, I think, are now we're finding the middle zone now, kind of thing. So we've kind of gone from everything paper to everything digital, and now settings are kind of going, oh, hold on. Actually, now we've got the issue that practitioners are just sat on iPads all day, doing all of these paperwork, doing all these things. So they're still consuming their time with paperwork, but it's on a tablet, which actually is probably more detaching from a child than just sitting at the table and scribbling some notes. So again, I think there's been another shift to bring it back to a middle ground with it. And again, that could well be for that personal side of things as well, that nurseries are seeing as well.
Very, very interesting. So what has been the biggest surprise when becoming a father to you, James?
Oh, I struggle with this one a little bit. I think one of the main things is how little sleep you can actually survive on and still function properly. I mean, as you both know, my partner is not the best of sleepers. So quite often, because obviously she'd, for example, it might have been Willow, it might have been Olive at the time. She'd have them by the bed. I'd go and I'd be allowed to go out into the spare room so I can get a good night's sleep. But I would be the one that's up at 5 a.m. When they wake up, just so that she can get those few extra hours before she starts work. But it was kind of a bit of a balancing act. So I'd say, yeah, knowing that, I mean, I used to be quite, oh, I need 8 hours sleep every night, and then I realized, oh, I can actually survive on 5, and it doesn't really make too much difference. And the other surprise was, again, I kind of touched upon it earlier, was realizing that you have no time to do anything. Painting a room takes 5 months because you've got to do it around them, and you don't want the paint fumes in the house when they're there. So yeah, my DIY progress on my house is certainly stalled over the last 5 years.
How has fatherhood changed you, for good or for bad?
I think it's definitely made me more organized. With just the necessity to have to plan ahead. I used to be very impulsive. I'd not know, I don't know, on the Thursday what I was going to be doing at that following weekend. And I'd decide at the time, oh, I want to go out for a meal, I want to do this, that, or the other. But now one of the main differences is that the calendar just gets booked up, because you're kind of planning a number of people. Like if my friends want to meet up for we got like an old friend group that we meet up for a beer. Well, supposedly every kind of couple of months. We haven't seen each other for 6 months. Whenever we try and arrange it, it's like, oh, when do we have a weekend free? When you've got four people, four dads trying to get a weekend free.
Mm.
I mean, our next one we booked for August. We're in January.
Well done for getting it booked though.
Well, this is true. Yeah. I mean, that probably took a month in itself. But yeah, it's just having to be way more organized and plan ahead and know that everything you do is going to take at least 5 times longer than it used to.
It's interesting because at the beginning of this podcast, I kind of made clear that I have chosen not to have children, and in the last 3 minutes, you've just summarised why.
Yeah, that doesn't go away. You are definitely right on that one there, Gemma.
Those are the top 3 points as to why not, Gemma.
Yeah, this podcast is not supposed to be an advert for birth control, but take from it what you will. What is something or a moment that you prioritize with yourself and the children? What do you do differently now that you absolutely would not accept any differently?
Well, I again, I touched on it before, but it's really spending quality family time together. Not having that hour where it's all rushed before getting them ready and it's all stressful, getting to work on time, getting them to school on time, nursery on time, and then getting dinner and bedtime in. It's actually spending as much time as possible with them and doing some like quality stuff, if you know what I mean. Spending as much time as possible with extended family. As I said, most of my family are down in Devon. Lou's family is kind of Surrey wise. So we spend a lot of time with our families, with the children. So they got really good bonds with their grandparents and aunties and uncles and cousins. Another thing is kind of, I suppose it's probably why I'm always skint. Going out and going away as much as possible with them. As I said, I took them to Centre Parks last weekend, just making memories, knowing that they're not going to be young forever. And there were certain parts of my childhood that I kind of really remember fondly from maybe like 3-4 years old. And that is what I am doing and creating for them at this moment in time. So yeah, that's my main priority, spending time with them and doing some good stuff that they're going to remember.
Wonderful advert for fatherhood. I think what a lovely sentiment as well. Absolutely. Because there's a lot of people that'll be listening to the podcast where their experience is very different, and we spoke earlier about generational norms and sometimes breaking generational norms, and not to sound patronizing in any way, but I think you should feel proud of the type of dad that you are, because absolutely. It's a very privileged position, but one that you seem to be absolutely smashing.
Well, I try hard. I may not always achieve, but I do the best I can.
And that's all that anyone can ever ask of a dad.
Absolutely.
Nobody is perfect, but nobody's asking you to be perfect either. No. Just being there. So, talking of which, what should we be talking more about with fathers and parenting? What do you wish you knew?
I think this is the hardest one that you've asked me. I don't think, again, this is not, I wouldn't say it's necessarily fathers, but parents in general. Just for having a bit more appreciation on how children's brains work and how they develop. It's so easy to, when you just don't understand why, and they can't rationalize things, and you get so frustrated with behavior, etc. But by understanding how they develop and at certain points, it enables kind of dads and mums to kind of react more appropriately and deal with situations better when things are getting tough.
And is that something, assuming you did kind of NCT groups, things like that, when you were preparing for the girls to be born, and kind of, Was that covered at all within those? Or is that
Not
more
really.
kind of a birthing tool?
So yeah, I mean, no, it wasn't covered. I mean, we had our we were lucky enough to be the COVID generation for
Of
MCT, so
course, yeah.
everything was done online. So I mean, it was still good. I mean, less so much me, but Lou definitely kind of stays in contact with maybe three or four of the mums.
Okay.
Some of them they have obviously had their first at the same age as Olive, and their second one is exactly the same age as Willow, and they both.
Yeah.
So we've got like kind of they're kind of decent friends of ours now. But no, it is really about birthing. It doesn't really cover. Again, it just from what I can remember, and as I said, it's like 5 years ago, so it's hard for me to necessarily remember exactly what we covered. But again, it just as far as the what the dad should be doing, it's support, support, support. But you can't really do much else than that. So it certainly doesn't tell you about how to deal with um a 4-year-old having a paddy in the middle of a shop, where you need to try and diffuse the situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's certainly there's no handbook, is there?
I think often, I think nowadays with again a generational element with the use of the internet and Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever you want to use as your go-to method, there is a lot of information out there. And as always, Ellen and I like to remind everybody that it is not always the correct information, but that people kind of go, we'll just look at that on the internet. We'll just go find out about that. And you'll kind of go, actually, but I'd just like a bit more guidance, actually. I just want that sort of step by step, almost a little bit in this situation. Or if your child's showing this, or if you're doing that, try doing that. Is kind of what you almost need sometimes as well, isn't it?
Oh, it's quite often a case of trial and error. What does
Oh,
it work?
exactly.
What works for your child?
And depending
basically.
on the phase of the moon and what.
Yeah.
Have you found a difference between the two girls?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because obviously one is 3. She talks. She's she's a reasonable talker, but she is not. She wasn't as quick as developing as Olive certainly. Now Olive also takes after me, and is very, very, very stubborn. She
Oh,
talks a
I
lot.
thought you were going to say talks out there.
I thought you
Yeah,
said
she does
talks
talk a
about
lot, but she's also stubborn. And if she puts her foot down, there is no way you are persuading her.
So the two of you in Sainsbury's, when you're both having a stroll in the
Yeah.
middle of an aisle, is
Yeah,
not
well,
ideal.
it was Sainsbury's this one instance, and since this instance, where she just put her arm out and basically just swept the stuff, whatever aisle we're in. It only lasted for maybe a meter or two, but that was. I am never taking a 2-year-old loose. I was only going in for one thing. I thought, what damage can we make?
What could happen? What could happen?
How bad can it be? Oh, yes, it was bad. Yeah, she swept loads of stuff on the floor, then had a paddy because I wouldn't let her do what she wanted to do. So ever since, it has to be you're going in the trolley. I mean, they sit on the floor in the trolley. And even if I'm going for one thing, Olive's fine now. But if I took Willow, she is good. She won't go in the chair in the supermarket trolley. No, that's just
Bit
not cool.
restrictive.
It's not cool. So both of them sit in the trolley, or Olive will stand on the outside, hanging onto the edge, while we go round. But there is always going to be a trolley there after that one incident.
This one time.
Traumatized.
Ruined it for everybody.
She'll be
Yeah,
18.
I've learned from that.
saying.
I've learned that that's not happening again ever.
Oh, that's absolutely hilarious. So apart from that, safety in numbers in the supermarket, what what other advice would you give to fathers, especially for fathers of young children?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I probably touched upon it, but when you think things can't get any worse and times are exceedingly hard, you've just got to remember that they're only really young once, and at this point in their lives, you're the most important thing to them. You are their world. But as they get older, they're going to have like friends and partners that you're going to have to share them with. You just got to make the most of your time, the time you have together during their formative and early years, and just live it to the full.
What a lovely, lovely end to the podcast, James.
Absolutely.
Oh,
The
that
most
is
perfect end to the podcast of today.
the
Thank
most
you.
beautiful sentiment. So there we
Done.
go.
Sold.
Yeah, I mean, this is a lot of this is Lou is the very, very maternal figure, and she reminds me of these things now and again. So
We all
yeah,
need
I mean,
reminding of those things, though. So
we
Absolutely.
get frustrated at times, but yeah,
Of
you
course.
just got to think about it might be tough. There are still going to be lots of tough times in the future, but you're not going to get more out of them, more love out of them any more than you are currently getting. So you've really got to make the most of it.
Well, how wonderful.
thank you so much for tuning in today. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the topics we've discussed or answer any of your questions you might have. Your input really helps shape our conversations.
Don't forget to like, share, and follow our podcast to stay updated. And as always, let's keep the conversation about early years going. Until next time, take care and keep making a difference.